Welcome everybody to the World of Ability Podcast Network. I am Emily Gilmer. We're excited to bring you another episode of the Aspie Bridge with Suzanne Plumley. So, as our Sam said, you're right. You have to say today.
Thank you, Emily. All right, I have a very special month of May that I'd like to share with all of you, and I'm bringing you this because of two reasons. One, I just came back from an awesome conference with my organization where I became a certified life coach, and there are 5 tools that we learn about each time I go to this conference. And it's even though I've been there to the conference many times, these rules and these tool reminders help us to really ground ourselves in who we are. But before I get there, let's go along and with the tagline with all the awesome people out on YouTube across the world who are telling us what autism is, such as Paul Micallef in Australia and Sam Stein in the Netherlands and Sarah Hendricks in the UK and all of the American Aspie women and some men who are telling you what autism is. You don't need another person telling you. Instead, the mission of the Aspie Bridge is to help you come to understand that you too can go over this bridge as I did this weekend and go into a wonderful, supportive world. And I have a number of people who you've seen up until now who are more than happy to help you. I call them bridge builders because they are part of the NT world, but they're more than willing to step up as volunteers to support me, to support you. They have a zone of genius that they can help you. Now, don't let that genius scare you. What I mean by that is they have an area that they have specialized in, and they can help you by creating plans and backing you up and supporting you and making your life a lot easier if you will let me connect you to them. And that's the most important thing. I'd like to invite you to go to the aspiebridgebuilders.com website and just check out all of these people who are there to be your resources. We, as late diagnosed autistic individuals, did not have the opportunity to be connected to resources. And I don't want to see you get stuck on this side of the bridge on welfare, on SSI, on SSDI because you're autistic. Now, there may be other reasons why you might need that. But if the only reason you're on this side of the bridge, not going over, and you're collecting SSI and SSDI is because you think that I'm autistic and therefore I need to get that. Because I know I've been the torchbearer, I've gone over there. I know you can go over there. And I know that while many people think that we're disabled, ASD, I'd like to help you start to think about it as autism spectrum. Leave off the D, or if you need the D, different abled. And that's okay. It's okay to be different abled. It means that the NT world, neurotypicals, can certainly use a lot of our gifts. And today I'm going to be talking about the first tool that we go over during this conference. And it's to help you become more aware of just how awesome you are, just how special you are. You're not disabled, you're not disordered. We're meant to be like this. So, without further ado, the first tool I'd like to talk to you about, well, actually, let me say there are 5 tools. And each week in the month of May, we're going to be going over a different tool to really help you get grounded and feeling better about who you are. And I like this fact that I just went to the conference and that I'm doing this because in the month of June, we're going to start to talk about relationships. And I truly believe that your relationships will get stronger if you can start to understand yourself better. And I'm not going to tell you about the traits. You already know about that. I told you. This is more of coaching skills that I have learned that have really become the cornerstone of who I've become. And they can become the cornerstone of who you become. What's a cornerstone, you might say? What does that mean? That means the basis, my core values of where I have come into my everyday life and realized that there are a set of tools that I can use to become a stronger me. And you can use them to become a stronger you. So, rule number one, notice what you're noticing. Have you ever noticed that you can't beat your own heart? You can take a breath, yes, but you can't beat your own heart. You don't have the choice of that. There's something else in this world that brought you into this world that helps your heart beat. And until you lay your head on the pillow for the last time, it will continue to beat. Because that is, in essence, the whole part of being alive is we have a beating heart. Whether it's an artificial heart or the heart that you were born with, you still have a heart. And that I would like you to put your hands on your heart and just feel it and just realize that that's why you're special. You're here because you're meant to be here. You're meant to be part of this world to help those who don't see what we see create a better world. Can you imagine what would it be if everybody thought the same way? Can you imagine how our world would be missing an important part of the puzzle? Well, we'll keep going into that as we go along, but what I want you to realize is that you can feel your heart, you can feel your pulse in your wrist, you can feel your pulse in your neck, and just say, I am alive and I am going to bring special gifts to this world. I know I can, because if you weren't able to do that, perhaps that might mean that you, let's say, you're here for a reason. That's what I want to say. You are here for a reason. And the very fact that you can feel your pulse means that you have an important gift to give the world. So let's go on to say, do you think that every thought that jumps into your head is all yours? Do you think that, oh, I can just imagine something and it comes from me? Well, I have to tell you that not every thought, in fact, none of the thoughts are yours alone. I used to think that I had a super imagination. And when I say super, I mean heightened imagination. I had trouble coming to realize that not every original thought I had was just mine alone. There are other influences in our world that have brought those ideas to me. I didn't create them on my own. And I'm sure there are times when you're like, wait a minute, where did that thought come from? Well, we have two things, we have imagination and we have intuition. And imagination is when we can take something, such as a ball, and say, gee, I'd like to have a ball that I can throw up against the wall and catch. Well, we don't want to throw a sponge ball, so maybe we want to think of something that might be harder that will bounce back. Or maybe we want something that we can kick. Well, we don't want to kick a hard ball like a bowling ball. So our imagination allows us to take one item and figure out a new use for it. And that would be part of what they call synthetic imagination. That is using a basic construct, a basic item, and finding a new form of that item in order to serve a purpose. And that is imagination. But I want to tell you that there are thoughts that come into your mind, such as, I'd like to buy a new car, or gee, I'd like to buy another part of my collection. That's more likely what comes to your mind. Or I'd like to buy something for dinner because I'm in the mood for a specific kind of food. Now, where do you think that idea of what you actually want comes from? Well, you might have a craving for it. I get that. But still, there's another source that brings that idea to you. And that source is called intuition. That's a little different from imagination. Imagination is taking something that might already exist and creating a new form, or taking an item that already exists and creating a similar form. Now, when it comes to intuition, that's a small voice in your mind that says to you, you know what? What would happen if I did this? And then you get an idea that sparks your mind. Have you ever gotten excited when an idea just jumps into your mind like, wow, that's kind of cool. I kind of want to do that. That's tuition, but that's also called your still small voice. It kind of nudges you to try something new, doesn't it? Let's say you have a collection of a particular kind of statues, and you're like, I wonder if I could find that statue somewhere else. And then an idea pops into your mind of where you could find that. Or maybe you're collecting something that is like a set of dishes. And you're like, I wonder if I could create my own set of dishes. Now, that idea didn't just come to you and from your imagination. That idea came to you from a source within you that says, you have the power to think of that item. You have the power to let that thought come to you. And that is really cool. That's not part of your imagination. It seems very close though, doesn't it? And that's where I got confused too. I'm like, well, isn't that my imagination? Well, as I say, think of it in terms of a creation versus a motion or an activity. That might help you to really separate the two. When you think that creation of something new could be part of your imagination, but thinking of something for an action step, something you'd like to do, that's more tuition. That's like a nudge in your heart saying, wouldn't you love to do this? And so that's the difference between imagination and intuition. I hope that's clear, but if it's not, please feel free to put a comment in the box to say, I don't quite get it. Can you explain further? And I'd be more than happy to help you understand that better. But think imagination is the creation of an item, intuition is the creation of an action step or emotion or an activity that you never thought of before. It might be like another activity that you're already part of, but usually it's something that comes to you like, let's try this. So hopefully that takes care of you understanding the difference of what the two are. And as I say, it doesn't always come from this world here. It might come from another world. Now, I like the word God, and I feel that that's safe with me, but you may have other words that you would prefer to use that come to you. I know there are different religions, different people who celebrate and study different forms of why they're here in the world. Whatever feels most comfortable to you, that's what you want to use. I don't want to go and start telling anyone that they have to use the terms I use. They're just comfortable for me. But as I say, sometimes we get ideas that we just don't know where that idea came from. But sometimes those ideas do come from a book, from a movie, from someone you just spent a couple of hours having coffee with. Sometimes those ideas do come from that source. And I think that that's okay. That's not called copying. That is actually more called being inspired by something you heard. Sometimes I can open up a book and I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even considered that. What a great idea that would be. What if I did this? Sometimes you can say to yourself, what if I tried this activity? And that would be intuition. Now, imagination would be, what if I created this? I hope that helps you. So, the intuition or the small voice does not scream, do it now. It doesn't do that. It's a nudge. It says, what if you tried to move to another town? What if you tried to drive? What if you tried to live in a tiny home? What if you tried to do this? Sometimes you can say to yourself, what if I tried? And an idea will come to your mind. And that's what intuition is all about, is thinking. And the small voice is thinking, what if I tried? So that's just the beginning. It's going to get a little bit deeper as we go on in the week, but I want to try and keep this as simple for you so you can really get it. It takes some time, so don't give up on yourself. Now, the next thing I want to get into is a paradigm. Now, a paradigm is different from intuition. A paradigm is a belief that we already have inside of us. And what that means is that, let's just say that you grew up in a family that loved soccer or loved football, and everybody loved football, and they thought football was the best, and there was no other sport better. Well, then if you go out in the world and someone says, I don't like football, I don't think football is very good, your belief system is that football is the best. That didn't come from you, that came from generations before you, even within your family or your grandparents' family. And as I say, it does go deeper than that, but it's a set of behaviors and thoughts that are already within us. Let's take something a little deeper and say, our family has never been rich. I'll never be rich in my life because my family's not rich. Well, that's a paradigm. If you start to believe that because no one else in your family has ever had a lot of money, that that's your destiny, never to have a lot of money, well, that's a paradigm, and a paradigm can be changed. Just like for us, if someone were to say, everybody who's autistic is disabled, well, now that's a paradigm. That is a paradigm that says to you, maybe you're not good enough, or maybe you can't do what other people do. And I'd like to encourage you to say, that's just not true. That's not true. I know I have capabilities. And that's the important thing to know is just because someone has decided that ASD is stands for disabled doesn't mean that you are stuck. We have a term in my organization that says your history does not define your destiny. Yes, maybe people did consider that because you had a diagnosis that you were disabled or disordered. I'd like you to say to yourself, that is their belief. That is no longer my belief. I'd even like to take a step further and say, yes, I am autistic. I am on the spectrum, but look at everything I can do. Because that's going to start to get you to realize that even though our letters are ASD, you don't have to own the D unless you are willing to accept the paradigm that ASD means disabled. Now, I'm hoping I'm hoping that you will not let that stop you from trying new activities, from trying to go over into the bridge to meet new people, from trying to do something you've never done before, such as drive. You know, I think we get a raw deal sometimes because the ASD really stops us on this side of the bridge and tells us that we're not as good as everybody else. Eleanor Roosevelt had a term that says, all the water in the world cannot hurt us unless it gets inside of us. And what that means is that if you keep believing that everyone thinks that ASD means you're disabled, you're going to believe it. But if you can let people have their opinions out there that autism is disabling, guess what? You can prove to them that they are wrong. You have that capability. I've been doing this experiment for the last 5 years while I was in Starbucks and while I was in my organization. And let me tell you, there are people that come up to me and say, there's no way you're autistic. That's not masking. It's the fact that I have stopped believing that autism is a disability. I've stopped believing that people can tell me that I'm less than they are because I have autism. And I prefer to think of it as the reverse. Not that we're better than them, but we have different qualities that they can use to make everyone's life better. We're not less than. We're not disabled. And I don't think we're disordered because we look like other people. We still have a heart that beats. We still breathe. We can see with assistance or with animals, or we can have assistants who can do things for us. You know, everyone has different challenges, but that doesn't mean that you have to be stuck in a disability where you can't try new activities based on your assets. And we're going to go into that in a little while. Knowing that you are far more capable than the people that give you credit for is the most important lesson here. Notice what you're noticing. What are your assets? Where are your strengths? I'd love to have you take out a piece of paper and write down all the things that you know you're good at and put them up on a bulletin board. Put them up in front of you. Put them on your refrigerator. Have them somewhere, even on the mirror in your bathroom, to remind you that you do have so many strengths. Now, I have bridge builders because I don't know everything. I have people that have different strengths. And together, we make a collection of humanity, a part of humanity that can cooperate with each other. For 3 days, I was at this conference. And not one moment did I feel that I was less than others just because I was one of the few that accepted my autism. You know, it was nice to see that people saw my gifts and they never saw my diagnosis. They never saw it. And what a wonderful way of being empowered that I could do just as much as others could do in my area of focus, on my highway of my skills. I wasn't stuck having no skills. I know my skills. I'm very visionary. I love to do things that are digitally impacted, such as scrapbooks and crafts and things like that. Those are my assets. Can I do coding on a computer? No, that's not my interest. Can I go and know what the stock market means all the time? No, that's not my interest either. Neither is reading legal contracts. That's okay. You don't have to know everything. Stick with what your assets are. I'd love you to find 5 assets that are important to you. Maybe you're a great drawer. Maybe you can draw some of the best characters. Know who you are. That's the most important thing. Don't try and compete with anyone else. Know you. I'd love to have you find 5 characteristics that really, when you get up in the morning, you're just very happy that you can do those things. And then start to look down the pathway at the things that you can do with those assets. I don't want you to get into writing limitations because that's going to take you back into your paradigms. And that's what other people try and do to us. You can't do this because you're not as coordinated as I am. You can't do this because you don't talk as fast as I do. You can't do this. Get that out of your head. Don't even think about that. We also have an expression that says where you put your attention is where you get your intention of what you want to do. And what that means is if you look at all the limitations you have, well, guess what? You're going to get stuck in your limitations. But if you look at the fact that, let's say you know everything about airplanes, maybe you'd love to really get to know more about working in an airport. That would be an asset. Your skills might be awesome. Maybe you're into working with children. That would be another asset. So I want you to come up with 5 assets that you can really direct your attention to. And we're going to go into this more in the future. Believing in yourself is so important. You can start to see that D of ASD disappear when you really put your attention on what your strengths are. You know, you don't have to have all the strengths. Concentrate on 5. You know what might happen if we had 50 strengths? We might get diverted in so many different directions that we don't know which pathway is ours. Everybody is here for a purpose. And if you can come up with 5 and see how they interrelate with each other, you're going to start to see that you have a pathway, a journey to go on where you can use those gifts to give to the world. And I think you would feel so good about yourself. The whole idea of the Aspie Bridge is to re enter society and share your gifts and not pay not so much attention on your challenges. And that's another thing. I never say problems. I accept my limitations. Well, I should say I acknowledge my limitations, but I don't accept them to keep me stopped. I acknowledge what I can do well, which is digital, but I don't worry about the fact that I can't understand a text form. You understand what I'm saying? You really want to look at what's important to you. Maybe you are the person that can do the taxes. That might be a direction for you. You might be the person that understands commodities and the stock exchange. That might be your avenue, your journey. So, whatever your journey is, believe in yourself, believe your assets are going to take you to the next step on your path. And I want to say that sometimes we need to look at where we are right now in our life. What lines up with that asset? Let's say you're into cooking. We talked about this back when we were talking about careers a little bit. Let's say you are into cooking. Why would you be in a library if you were into cooking? That would be a time when you might want to consider, is this career really stopping me? And why am I getting this nudge from the still small voice to go closer to the avenue I'm meant to be on. You don't need to stay in that particular job just because you got hired. Now, I don't recommend you quit immediately, but I just want you to think about some of the different jobs in your line of assets that you might find more interesting. It's okay to have a job in the other one for a little while you find your path, but don't feel like you're stuck in a different lane. Try and maneuver yourself back to where your strongest assets are. Try to think of some of the different things. There is a book called What Color is Your Parachute? And you might even want to think about going and looking at some of the different jobs that use your assets. Because I can tell you, the more that you read or look at books or look at shows, whatever form of information serves you most, if you find that form of information that you can really dive into to learn where your path is in life, you're going to get to feel more and more confident about going across this bridge. And the areas that you don't have the confidence, that's where the bridge builders come in. Yes, we can't just stay in our lane. That's just where we can give our gifts. I have all of these bridge builders who will help you with areas of expertise that are not in your lane so that you can have a full spectrum life, not just a life based on a little corridor of what you do well. All the people that I've brought on up until now are here to help you with the other parts of your life that may be more challenging to you. And I think what I'd like to say as I'm wrapping this up today is that the more you can get to know what your assets are, the better you're going to find like minded people who are in that same list of ideas, or not list, that group of ideas. Now, rather than feeling like you're stuck with just autistic individuals, you can now say, you know what? I'm really much into books, particularly history. What are the lanes that I can travel where other people who enjoy history are going to hang out? That's going to be your key to going over this bridge and finding yourself confident to be in circles where both autistic and neurotypical people hang out together. When you can focus on your belief in yourself and know what your assets are and your interests are, you can find groups with like minded interests where you can feel just as comfortable. I don't want you to think that you have to stay on this side of the bridge with other neurodivergent people because you don't belong over there. Of course, you belong over there. You just want to go over and find your tribe. You don't want to stay here. You're better than that. You're more capable of that. And I know that. And if I hadn't walked this journey myself, I might not believe it either. But I can tell you, when I go to this conference that I've gone to many, many times, there's nothing that fills me with more comfort and empowerment than knowing that I'm with a group of people that share my common interests. Because we lift each other up, we can help each other. And isn't that a good feeling to have versus staying stuck? I know you can go across this bridge, and I'd love to see you go toward groups that have your like interests. Now, if you're feeling you have a challenge, I highly recommend you start to look at the different categories that I have on the aspiebridgebuilders.com website to see where you can first register to let me know where you would like to start, because on that website you get 8 free coaches who will help you solve a problem that isn't in your zone of your expertise or in your journey through life, you can get the help. You no longer are stuck saying, I don't know it, I can't do it, I need to stay on this side of the bridge, because you can do this. I know, because I've done it. And I would love to tell you that if you need assistance, I have a whole group of us who will help you. If you find a category that's not on that website, please let me know, because I will find someone there. I was among 700 people this past weekend, of which 500 of them are life coaches, and many of them are ready to step up to help you. And they're the most heartwarming people, because they accepted me immediately, and I know they'll accept you. So please, I really encourage you to go on to the first page and register, and let me know where you would love the resources. I once went to a conference where resources meant helping you find a letter that would get you SSI or SSDI. And while that's helpful for a short time, that shouldn't be the rest of your life. And we've talked about that already. So I would love to see you start to take stock in who you are. Believe in yourself. As I say, you can go to the bathroom, read your list, and say, I can do this. And that is the important part. Notice what you're noticing. Notice the ideas that come to your mind of what brings you excitement, what brings you joy. You know, if you're into sports or a particular sport, get interested in that. Learn what you can. Don't stay stuck, please. Life is more than that. You don't need to live in someone else's box of their beliefs of what you need to do with your life. You can do this. So next week, we're going to start to look at the next tool, which is longing and discontent. And what that means is that sometimes we get to a point in what we're doing and we're like, I'm just getting burnt out. And burnout is not a bad thing. Burnout means that you have grown to the maximum level you can in that particular job. It means you can't grow any further. And you're just going through the motions of going to work just so you can get a paycheck. That's not a way to live. Now, it may mean you need to start to think about the next steps before you move on or leave the job. I do not recommend you quit until we start to look further at what is inside of you, where your heart beats quicker, where you get excited about an activity. And let's help you get onto your path and live a life you would love. And that may sound woo woo to you, but it's really not if you think about it. Why be in a library if you'd rather be on a sports field, or vice versa? Why work in a Nike or a shoe department if you'd rather be in the library? Where are your assets? I would love to see you start to write them down and put them in a place where you're going to see them on a daily basis. And then next week, when we come back, we're going to talk about your longing and discontent. And I'll tell you more next week. I don't want to get too far ahead of you. I really want you to concentrate on your assets this week. So this is Suzanne, and I would love to welcome you back next week for the next tool in our toolbox. Thank you so much, and I will hope you have a great day. Don't forget to write those assets. Have a great time. Goodbye.